This Easter, the mainstream media gifted us with something truly special once again. Well, a poorly photoshopped Joe Biden ghost hand included. Plastered into an Easter event like some digital scarecrow, the image was meant to scream, "He's still relevant," but ended up whispering, "Is he even real anymore?" In this Trump-led America where results matter, all the left can manage is CGI, photoshopped illusions of their failed past, but that's just where our stories begin. No, we got to move forward into the Pete Hegseth saga because they need a distraction and need one fast. Enter Pete Hegseth, defense secretary, targeted by a coordinated media hit job for the crime of, well, retooling our military. Many come to his defense, but they're trying to make Signalgate the end of his legacy, so what do? The legacy press outlines hit pieces to frame him as a dangerous radical for daring to expose the cultural rot and institutional decay President Trump is actively dismantling. Stunning how he removes leakers, and immediately thereafter, suddenly stories of Pentagon ineptitude and disorder hit the front pages. And Ice Barbie hits the stage with a story I think that is still just developing, caught in the crosshairs of narrative chaos, when her purse is mysteriously stolen by a masked man who was allowed to get within inches of her. I guess we still have not sheared up our security yet, have we? But what was in her purse gets headlines raging. But are these all just coincidences? Or the convenience of chaos? But the true story revolves around this man. China making a stunning announcement that goes to show you everything he's doing right now is being met with the exact reaction he was hoping for. We're going to cover all that and so much more in just a minute. So Trump on Truth Social, and a lot of people have this timeline inaccurate. What message he sent was the golden rule of negotiating and success. Negotiating and success is he who has the gold makes the rules, and gold skyrockets. We don't expect anything less from Trump. What was he indicating there? I think this story goes far deeper than most are covering for you. But here, we allow stories to develop. We bring you precursors to what will be major stories so you are prepared when they hit with the information necessary to interpret them. But as always, we stay ahead of the curve. And so many of you, as this channel has exploded, realize that now. And I want to thank you for all those of you who've subscribed. Again, double check that you're still subscribed. Make sure your bell is checked to all so you're alerted to upcoming broadcasts. And also a huge thank you relevant to our storyline today, a portion of it about gold. The new sponsor who came aboard to sponsor this video, none other than Noble Gold Investments. Have you gone to JustusKnightGold.com? I know, appropriate timing now that everything is kicked into high gear with gold. Just like my news, I try to keep my sponsorships relevant to what's happening, and JustusKnightGold.com gives you that because Noble Gold Investments market update, although this changes daily now, gold is up 46% a year, doubling NASDAQ and S&P 500 gains, and then you see the explosion of gold over the last couple days. But it's not just another rally. No, Trump's helping to drive this one. Global reserves are shifting as investors rush to secure physical gold, and that is exactly what they're doing, creating a massive supply gap. Gold's vanishing from the market, but you still have a chance. That's why I partner with Noble Gold Investments. I want you to go to JustusKnightGold.com and turn all this panic into your profit. Make a qualified investment. Noble Gold will give you this free 1/10 ounce gold American Eagle coin. Now, I want you to remember there is always a risk to investing. There's absolutely no guarantees, but Noble Gold Investments makes it as easy as possible. Or you could simply call 877-646-5347. I put all that information on the screen. Tell them Justus Knight sent you, and they will help guide you through how to protect your wealth with gold and silver. You want more information? Go in the description box below. That is Noble Gold Investments. But now let's get back to this video. Okay, I'm going to leave this full screen for just a moment. The photo that set the internet on fire. The ghost hand, as they call it. Did you catch it? Did you even see what was wrong in this photo? A lot didn't, until you zoom in a little bit and you realize that, well, something appears out of place. Did you see it yet? Was Joe Biden really there? So let's zoom in a little bit more, or simply highlight what we're looking at, because that hand right there really doesn't seem to fit now, does it? I can't believe this. What is happening with bad photoshopping is atrocious. At least that's the rumor now, isn't it? Kind of hard to say it's not when you take a different look at it. Oh, they can go into the technicals of Jill's hair. I don't care. Just that hand doesn't work for me. And hence, was he really there? Or do we have another weekend at Biden's issue? But that's what the mainstream media focus on. And of course, the internet exploded. You couldn't even bother to show up for your family photo, loser. They had to Photoshop you in. Or my favorite recreation of the photo. I'm sorry, as you know, you have to be able to laugh in this news cycle, or else you go out of your ever-loving mind. And there was conspiracy after conspiracy brewing up yesterday. The Ice Barbie stealing of her purse. Now, the problem with this is, where was the Secret Service protection? A masked man gets within inches of Kristi Noem, steals her purse with a lot of critical items in it that begs even bigger questions. Because I don't know about you, I can't remember the last time if I've ever carried around $3,000 in cash. Now, technically, credit cards are a bit more secure because you can have things stolen, and I would hope that Kristi Noem knows that. The man was able to take off with Noem's driver's license, medication, house keys, passport, DHS badge, makeup bag, blank checks, and roughly $3,000 in cash. Also, I can't remember the last time I've ever carried a blank check, but nonetheless, the reason given was her entire family was in town, including her children and grandchildren. She was using the withdrawal to treat her family to dinner, activities, and Easter gifts. I have a feeling there may be more to this story, and I'll make sure I bring it to you, but there's a lot more to a lot of stories. This gold post that Trump put up, the gold rule of negotiating, it says he who has gold makes the rules. Interesting, but relevant, because this goes back to the economy, and Trump is simply trying to tell someone something. Do you know what it is? Because I hope he tells me something soon. Because is this going back to the gold standard? Securing against markets? Who had all the gold? Who bought all the gold? So much of it that was in the market. Wasn't it China? Do you remember that? Saudi Arabia picked up a good portion. What did we do? Allegedly, we had it in Fort Knox. And my question still reigns supreme. Where is our audit? Because you promised it, but it ain't done. And it ain't published. How come? Raise more questions? Or is Trump trying to tell somebody that they better get on the stick? Of course, he has the power to do it, and we just simply need it done. We have enough working against us right now. But the master plan of negotiating, which is the most important part of that post, because his negotiations are proving successful, although the mainstream media wants to distract you from it. It appears most of his leadership wants you to distract from it. We have a new player now, DoD Rapid Response. Regarding the Fort McCoy chain of command wall controversy, we fixed it. What happened? The lady I showed you earlier decided that Pete Hegseth and Trump weren't relevant anymore, nor was Vice President J.D. Vance, so their photos turned around on the chain of command. How many more incidents of this do we need before people realize why Pete Hegseth is coming under fire? Because he is revamping a broken mechanism, one that was no longer built for lethality. It was built for virtue signaling. And when you disrupt that mechanism, the military machine, you're met with this. Colonel Ramirez is removed from her post, another removed from her post. as Pete Hegseth continues to revamp them. And we're going to come back to Pete Hegseth, but I didn't want to miss this one either, because Andrew Cuomo's in a little bit of trouble. At least another, and I know, and I'm tired of these like you are, another criminal referral. Now, the accusations against Cuomo have been out there for a long time. His COVID-19 response, his reporting of figures, and the list goes on and on and on. But what has anybody done about it? Well, nothing. This new letter going to Pam Bondi on October 30th, 2024, the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic referred former Governor of State of New York, Andrew Cuomo, for making criminally false statements, but nothing happened. Because the original letter was October 30th, 2024, posted here to Merrick Garland. He let it go. Well, now, this new letter, what do you think? I'm curious. Do you think they'll actually do anything about it? Do you think Pam Bondi will actually investigate Andrew Cuomo? Or are they just going to let it slide? To our knowledge, the Biden administration ignored this referral despite clear facts and evidence. Well, will this administration do anything different? I'm curious what your opinion is on this. Because there's been a lot of questions out there for a long time. Like this question. You know what building that is? Go ahead. List it out. A lot of questions about how that building fell. Well, now we're hearing that there may actually be an investigation. Ron Johnson, on the Benny Johnson Show, structural engineers say that these things didn't come down in any other way than controlled demolition. His quote, molten steel, destruction of evidence. We want answers. What really happened on 9/11? It's being covered up by our government. That's what Ron Johnson states. And now he's calling for an investigation. But again, a demand, a referral, no action. Senator demands 9/11 investigation into controlled demolition of Building 7. Will it happen? I highly doubt it. I wish it would. But I'm tired of them taking up mainstream headlines with inaction, referrals, demands, and requests. It's getting boring and it's getting monotonous. I'm doing what I was elected to do, President Trump states, remove criminals from our country, but the courts don't seem to want me to do that. This is him lashing out at the Supreme Court. Can you believe that the President of the United States does not have the power, according to the Supreme Court, as of right now, to deport illegals? In what country would that ever be deemed normal? My team is fantastic, doing an incredible job. However, they are being stymied at every turn by even the U.S. Supreme Court, which I have such a great deal of respect for. I think he said that because he thought he had to say that. But which seemingly doesn't want me to send violent criminals and terrorists back to Venezuela or any other country for that matter. People that came here illegally. The courts are intimidated by the radical left who are playing the ref. Great Supreme Court Justice Samuel Alito correctly wants to dissolve the pause on deportations. I read that for you in my broadcast yesterday. He is right on this. If we don't get these criminals out of our country, we're not going to have a country any longer, and we saw evidence of that. But now the Supreme Court wants an action. We cannot give everyone a trial. This is their argument. Due process. Because if you did that, according to President Trump, it would take 200 years to put them all through the court system, which is notoriously slow. And that's exactly what I told you the left wants. If they can force due process trials, nothing will happen. It will slow down the process, and hundreds of thousands of illegals won't be sent away. They'll remain here. It's simply, according to President Trump, not possible. What a ridiculous situation we are in. Ridiculous is an understatement. But we move forward to the distraction campaign of Hegseth. Just look at HuffPost. Hegseth hitting the road. Let's go to the next article because he is major news right now. Hegseth lashes out at media. Ex-NATO commander blames Pete Hegseth's indefensible conduct. Congressman, it's fair to wonder if Pete Hegseth was drinking amid signal use. Trump can fire Hegseth, but refuses to. So why such focus on Hegseth right now? The man who's revamping our military to actually be lethal, to make sure that our enemies fear us. Because they love the distraction. they love to seed the sows of what appears, or what they want to appear, as chaos. Although his underlings are the ones creating the chaos, but they won't cover that. Pete Hegseth responds.
You know, what a big surprise that a few leakers get fired and suddenly a bunch of hit pieces come out from the same media that peddled the Russia hoax. Won't give back their Pulitzers. They got Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. Pulitzers for a bunch of lies. And on hoaxes, time and time and time again. And as they peddle those lies, no one ever calls them on it. See, this is what the media does. They take anonymous sources from disgruntled former employees, and then they try to slash and burn people and ruin their reputations.
And he is spot on, because the machine is working against the administration. The machine wants to break up the administration because the administration is turning out to be very effective. And that's what they fear more than anything else. And Carolyn Levitt and Hegseth and Trump know this. Carolyn Levitt comes out, this NPR story is total fake news, based on one anonymous source who clearly has no idea what they're talking about. Signalgate Part 3, Part 4, Part 5. These stories suddenly abound as he's terminating, leaking employees, and then anonymous sources now come out with stories that don't even have any fact applied to them? Of course they do. Because they want to disrupt the Trump administration at all cost. What does Trump say about it?
I mean, I hear they're doing that whole thing again. Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thanks, Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Ask the Houthis how much dysfunction there is.
Gotta love that response. Ask the Houthis how he's doing. Let's see what they say. If he's so ineffective and terribly disorganized, man, those attacks have been very effective and very organized. You see, action doesn't line up with the reality the mainstream media is painting. Of course, it very seldom does, because the system's working against him. Even our own elected Democrats are working against him. 4 now, plus the senator, going out to El Salvador to visit with Kilmar Abrego Garcia. Denied access thus far. One of the Congress folks, I think it was her, Congresswoman Maxine Dexter. I'm not leaving until he's released. Well, then you're going to be there for a rather long time. I'm in El Salvador because I will not stand by while our country is thrown into a constitutional crisis. This is a moment to act. I will not rest until due process is upheld. Well, where were you during the Laken Riley Act? Because all 4 of you who went out there voted against the Laken Riley Act. Huh. So who are you defending, actually? Because the system doesn't defend we the people. The system, the previous system, defended everybody but us. James Comer already told you what would happen. They're demanding that James Comer, you and I, pay for this. Even though 2 days prior to their departure, if Democrats wish to travel to El Salvador and meet with foreign illegal MS-13 gang members, they can spend their own money to do so. I will not approve a single dime of oversight committee taxpayer funds for use on an excursion Democrats have requested. You already had your answer. So you're grandstanding and virtue signaling, because that's really all you have to do, because your substance meter is at 0. But Trump's substance meter is substantially higher, and it's starting to show results. There's the proof and evidence, by the way, Homeland Security. 4 more U.S. lawmakers just landed in El Salvador to meet and shake hands with the terrorists. All 4 of them voted against the Laken Riley Act. Thank you for validating my argument. But the left has a lot of problems. Lost messaging. Who they support. Who's that? It's a judge out of New Mexico. Venezuelan illegal with alleged Tren de Aragua ties arrested for possession of firearms while reportedly living at the home of a New Mexico judge. No, our system's not broken. The system will never fight back against the Trump administration. The system would never publish hit pieces simply to make the Trump administration appear they're in chaos at all times and ineffective. ICE bust top Democrat judge with Venezuelan gang member living in his home. Now, that would never happen. Because the enemy runs deep. And you know my public enemy number one has always been China. It's a story I have followed from day one of me starting to broadcast. And China proves that Trump is effective. China warns any country doing U.S. trade deals, we will make you pay. Now, why would they do that? China has warned it will retaliate against any country negotiating more favorable trade deals with the United States at the expense of its own interests. The Commerce Ministry announced yesterday Beijing would employ what is called reciprocal countermeasures should any party comply with demands to freeze it out of international trade. Ouch. Oh, did Trump hit a sore spot? Oh, Xi Jinping, are you okay? You're a little angry, aren't you? Of course, you're trying to portray that you are the globalist dream child, that you're able to control through your Belt and Road Initiative everything in every country, through every canal that you can find, through every resource you could acquire, that you are the omnipotent, all-knowing system. But it's all built on a lie now, isn't it? It always has been. China is in economic dire straits, and they're no longer able to hide it. At bottom, China will not be able to survive tariffs on the current scale for long. A single year of 124% tariffs would crush China's economy beyond repair. The U.S. is 15% of China's export market, which may not sound substantial, but their next largest trading partner, outside of Hong Kong, is Vietnam, at 4% of exports. In terms of domestic buying, China is 11% of the global consumer market, which is not too shabby, but compared to the U.S., with its 30 to 35% global consumer market share, there is no chance the Chinese will be able to fill the void domestically and stay afloat. But the situation is far worse than that. I just want to put this in perspective and how effective Trump is being right now. China has been suffering from a deflationary crisis since 2023. An uptick in exports during the pandemic was offset by the CCP's draconian lockdowns. This was essentially fiscal suicide. This is on Zero Hedge. Of the government, and China have been struggling ever since their property market has imploded, partially due to overbuilding through government-subsidized infrastructure programs. Sound familiar? They flooded the market with poorly constructed homes and buildings that were left to rot, the ghost cities of China. They were simply built and left vacant, if they were even built correctly to begin with. Corporate defaults have run rampant and left investors with nothing. There was some optimism the government's measures to end the crisis had been working to reinvigorate the market, but on March 31st, government-linked developer Vanke reported a record $49.5 billion, or $9.1 billion in our dollars, annual loss for 2024. The system is broke. It's the first corporate loss reported since 1991 of that company. The sector is destroyed. The deflationary spiral has been eating away at employment and has also resulted in numerous factories refusing to pay their workers on time or at all. Unpaid wages, this isn't what the picture the mainstream media has painted for you of China with the glistening lights and neon everywhere. Right? No. The government's a wreck. And they really have no option to respond. And now Trump is stripping away any additional ability for them to achieve the income they need to even attempt to partially pull themselves out of this disaster. China's attempt to hide the decay from the outside world are becoming less and less effective. While Chinese citizens able to access the internet beyond the Great Firewall, more and more videos are being leaked by people within the country who are tired of the misinformation, and it's showing a much more bleak picture. The CCP views negative economic data as a national security threat. Why do you think that is? Must be like the Biden administration, who continually reported wrong employment figures and just about every other figure because they only want the figures that they deem to be true, even though they're not based in fact, to be broadcast. And these citizens are taking big risks to get the information out. We're sharing it with you because nobody knows this because nobody reports it to you. People actually think China is this all-powerful country. No, it's dilapidated. It's that jalopy in the back of your house that you haven't started up for 3 years. That's what it is. But they want it to look like the Ferrari in front of your garage. It's not. It cannot be stressed enough that the global economy is largely a farce. But China is closest to the edge of the cliff in terms of consequences and crisis. And what's Trump doing? He's pushing them. They're on the cliff. He's applying that pressure. And if he applies enough, it will simply fall off the fiscal cliff. The interdependency of globalism has left many nations without the ability to weather a trade dispute, and China's survival is almost entirely based on steady exports to the West and the U.S. in particular. And who is counteracting that right now? Come on. That's right. President Trump. Don't let high-paid TikTok and YouTube influencers fool you with videos of Chinese skyscrapers caked with LED lights or lavish parties with dancing robots. That's not the true China. Underneath the facade is a nation on the brink of disaster. But the entire system's on the brink of disaster. Klaus Schwab suddenly out. And then you have the passing of the Pope. China on the fiscal cliff, falling off. So who's leading this global charge anymore, I wonder? We've got some problems now, don't we? Well, there's one man who grabbed the reins, is taking control, and despite all the mainstream manipulation, the panic that they want to appear, the disruption, the disarray that they're trying to portray to the American people, now you know why. And why it will only intensify. Because President Trump has the reins squarely in his hands. And he is lashing the horses to move as quick as humanly possible. And the only way that they can stop him, technically now, it gets a little bit more cryptic, doesn't it? I'm going to continue on further. If you want to join me, I'd love you to go to Restricted Republic, because this story, well, the filing's out now. And when I cover for you what it says, who is being linked, you'll start to understand how they intend on stopping them. It's a scary story, folks. I'm going to bring it to you exclusively at Restricted Republic here. Probably be posted by early this afternoon, and it is a mega story, and I hope you join me there. I love you all. Until next time, Godspeed and God bless. Justus Knight, signing out.